Time to start, so I will call to order the special meeting of the Salina Heritage Commission for November 19th, 2024. Looks like there's a request from staff that the Kansas Open Meetings Act notice has been properly provided.
Yes, I can confirm the packet was posted and the required notice was provided.
Okay. And then item 1.3, roll call.
I will call roll. Commissioner Sydow?
Here.
Commissioner Gilmore? Commissioner Sorrell?
Here.
Commissioner Walter Mangus? Commissioner Gillum?
Here.
Commissioner Triplett? And Chair Martin.
Here.
We have 4 of our appointed 7 members present and 3 absent, but 4 constitutes a quorum. So we've provided notice of today's meeting and we have a quorum, so we can move on and conduct today's business.
Okay. Item 2.1 is the approval of the minutes of the Heritage Commission annual business meeting that was held on September 24th, 2024. If you want to take a few minutes to look over those, take a few moments to look over those minutes. If you have any questions, please ask them of staff.
I move we approve the minutes from the September 25th meeting.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Motion and a second to accept the minutes as presented from September 25th. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the minutes from September 25th have been approved. And then new business item 3.1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 3.1 is a certificate of compatibility application. It's been filed by Ty Geiger, and the request is for approval of a certificate of appropriateness for essentially 4 exterior modifications that are being proposed, and those modifications are being considered in a single application. And the first item of consideration is a proposal to remove and replace an existing detached garage that's on the property that's located west of the existing dwelling. There's also a proposal to install a new privacy fence along the Crawford Street frontage of this property. The third is the replacement of existing front door and window on the front or address side of the property, which is Santa Fe. And then the fourth item is a proposal to remove an existing exterior staircase and roof that's located at the at the rear of the house, and that was added around the time of World War II when apartments were added to this property. So the subject property covers 2 platted lots and a portion of a third platted lot. It's a fairly substantial size lot located at the northwest corner of Santa Fe and Crawford. And this property is not only a contributing property, but was designated as a landmark property at the time that the historic district was created. And in way of background information, one thing that's notable about this house and this property we provided for you in your packet is that this property was the genesis or the motivation for why the Salina Heritage Commission was formed, and that was done in response to a proposal to turn this property into a bank and a professional office building in 1979. Excuse me, and that mobilized the neighborhood along South Santa Fe, and they formed an association, and then shortly thereafter the Salina Heritage Commission was formed, and it was the plan to convert this into a bank and office complex was not approved. But We provided you with some information about this property, that it was first constructed in 1885. It's a late Victorian stick-style home with Queen Anne style details. It is a two-story home, as you can see, and has a very steep cross-gabled roof. And so there's both architectural and historical significance to this home, which was built in 1885, and it's been referred to officially as the Quincy House, but a lot of people locally refer to it as the Ryan House because the Ryan family lived in the home continuously from 1948 to 2010. The current owners bought the property in 2022, and they came in to visit with city staff about plans to replace the existing garage, which they indicated was in poor structural condition. And so we discussed location, setbacks, garage size, the Heritage Commission application and review process, and we also discussed a few other projects that were being contemplated by the owner, and so staff recommended that those all be merged into a single application. And so the request to remove and replace the garage is due to its dilapidated condition, and two, the fact that it's designed with a depth that really doesn't accommodate the length of modern vehicles. And so the second part of this is a desire to have a privacy fence along Crawford Street to help buffer light and noise from what is a fairly heavily traveled arterial street. So we've broken our report down into 4 projects. One is the detached garage, and the plan is to locate the new garage directly west of the home in roughly the same location as the original garage, but it would be larger, 26 by 30 instead of the original 20 by 30. And there are some photographs there and information provided about the structural deterioration of the existing garage. And so there is a proposal to construct a replacement garage that had an 8 and 12 gabled roof that would, with asphalt shingles that would match the existing residence, and it would have doors that would face Crawford Street, and it would have cedar or LP smart side clapboard siding with Victorian stick trim, the idea again to match the residents on the lot. The second proposal is to allow the installation of a new privacy fence along the South or Crawford Street property line, and Salina's zoning ordinance does allow privacy fences to extend out to the front property line if it's on the secondary or non-address front yard. So in this case, Santa Fe is considered the primary front yard, and Crawford Street is considered the secondary front yard. And the exact fence design has not yet been finalized, but the proposal would be a cedar panel fence, and it would have either stone or brick-clad columns on the main section. And then the plan is to drop it down as you get to the intersection. And Crawford and Santa Fe is a controlled intersection with traffic lights, so the vision triangle there is smaller than it would be if this was a stop sign or uncontrolled intersection. But over the years, staff has received some complaints about the picket fence that's on the south side of that, opposite this, which is a 4-foot picket fence that, while technically not in the vision triangle, there is not great visibility at that corner of the intersection. But the plan for this is to have a solid fence and then drop down to where it is open as it gets close to the intersection. And that is, it's compliant with our requirement that once you get to the front setback line on Santa Fe, that you have to drop the fence height down so you don't obstruct visibility at the intersection. There's also a proposal to install a new front door, and we'll let the applicant go into this in a little more detail, but it's staff's understanding that when this was converted to apartments, the original front door was modified, essentially turned into almost two front doors, and the applicant would like to move the front door back so it lines up with the porch stairs and the original parquet entry floor. And then two existing windows would be replaced with one narrow double hung window. The applicant also indicates that there's a leaded glass transom that was recovered from the house torn down at 619 South Santa Fe, and that would be used above the front door if the framing allows. And then the final item is to review or to remove the rear exterior staircase that leads to the second floor. And I think there's a photograph here that shows that that was added during World War II when there was a conversion to apartments, and that staircase was added, and they're proposing to remove that and restore it back to what it was in the photo on the left. And so this is a landmark structure, and so that obligates the Heritage Commission to give the highest level of review to these proposed changes. And so our guidance for review, that is accessory structures of the garage, should be appropriate to and compatible with the architectural features of the primary structure on the lot. And so in addition to that, we have what we call compatibility checklist. And so even if you're not in a historic district, the zoning ordinance requires that a garage be compatible in design, materials, and appearance with the dwelling they serve. And so the garage was reviewed in accordance with that criteria. There was also some criteria for exterior privacy fences, which we provided for you on page 5 of the report. And item 3 says a 6-foot privacy fence may be erected in rear yards or in the non-address side of corner properties. Wood fences are preferred in these areas and may be left unstained, stained, or a compatible color to the house or painted white. And so the guidance is that the fence obviously meet the city's fence regulations, and also that it not obscure intersection visibility. And so so really this calls for you to review a fence on a case-by-case basis based on the historic property and the surroundings. And we've reviewed the proposed material, and the new fence does appear to conform with all the requirements of the zoning ordinance related to fence height and placement, and it does appear to be compatible with the site. As to the front entry door, it is an integral feature of the entrance to the property, and it should reflect the building's style and period of architectural significance. And so, absent recreating or having documentation of the original historic door, it may be replaced with a new door unit that's compatible with the style and character of the dwelling. And as to the staircase, that's really a non-historic addition, and it's not architecturally significant in its own right, and if that were to be removed, it would bring the house closer back to its original design. And so, as we noted, this property is designated as a landmark due to its architectural style and integrity, and that means that the project should be reviewed with a greater degree of scrutiny than if it was non-contributing. And so we've reviewed the garage, And on our compatibility checklist, it reaches 5 out of 5 points. So we do think it is compatible with the dwelling on the lot and meet all those criteria. And so the one thing we just had a note on that comes up sometimes, we have a zoning ordinance that allows a garage to be located within 3 feet of a side lot line. But the building code says if you put it at 3 feet, then the west wall has to be fire rated construction. And so when we're working on with property owners on garages, we say you can, if you set it back at 5 feet, it doesn't have to be fire rated. If it needs to be set at 3 feet, then the west wall would need to be fire rated. So we have provided findings for the commission on page 8 and 9 of the report. And we have tried to make findings there as to the compatibility of the garage, the compatibility of the fence, and that the new front entry door would appear to be more compatible in location and style with the original front entry door than the existing door. And in staff's opinion, the removal of the rear exterior staircase would not result in the removal of any historical or architecturally significant features. So your options this afternoon would be to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the total project. That would be all 4 work items. You could approve the replacement construction of the garage and add any conditions about or revisions to the plans for the garage approved by a majority of the commission. You could choose as a commission to deny one or more of the work items being proposed if you don't think findings can be made to support approval of that change, or you could postpone consideration of this application this afternoon if we think additional homework or information needs to be provided concerning the project, or you could deny the entire certificate of compatibility application if you don't think the proposed demolition and new construction meets the criteria of the ordinance. And so our recommendation is, if you agree that sufficient information concerning the project has been provided and you concur with staff's findings, that the modifications are compatible with the existing home and surrounding historic district, then we would recommend option 1. But as I noted, you have 5 options there, and option 3 has a number of variables based on if you want to view each work item differently or separately. So with that, we are here for any questions you have about the information in the packet. If you're looking for specific details about the project or what the applicants are trying to achieve, we have the Geigers here, and they'd be happy to address any questions you have about their project.
I would invite the Geigers to come up to the podium if he'd like to make any comments, or if we had any questions.
And just let us know if you want us to call up any of your graphics or anything to discuss them.
So you're asking for comments from me, or?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had any other comments. to
No,
make.
I don't have any other comments. My wife Cindy and I we're thrilled to have found this house 2 years ago. We've been coming here to Salina to visit family for like the last 10 years, and we've been looking for a Victorian house in the district. This is our second Victorian that we've restored, and so I hope I know what we're getting into. The approach we always take is we're looking for a period restoration rather than just going in and do a total renovation. So you can see that in a couple of these items. And as far as like the doorway and the staircase, that's going to restore it back to the original grandeur. So.
Yeah, wasn't sure if I did a very good job of describing what you're trying to do with the front entryway, so maybe you could do a better job of explaining the goal behind replacing and relocating the front door.
Sure. One thing, when the previous owner went in and converted this from the multiple apartments back to a single-family residence, they uncovered the original parquet floors were still intact. And so as you come in the entryway, there's a gorgeous laminate or parquet floor that is the width of the foyer, and it runs all the way back to the next room. And then there's another parquet floor that runs the width over to the wall. As far as I can tell, the staircase used to go up the right-hand side as you come in the doorway. Well, that parquet floor is exactly the same width as an archway that was in the wall in the back, and it also matches the width of where the original doors would have been, and matches up with the center line of the stairs that go up. It matches the center line of the porch entrance, as well as the center line of the front sidewalk. So that's our thinking on why we want to restore that door to the original location, is so that it matches, just flows as you come in.
You're lucky. It's a beautiful house. I bike by there all the time, and you're in my neighborhood. And the house is lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
Is this lower red X, is that where the staircase is that goes up to the?
Yes. If you want to flip over to that. So yes, you can see just to the left of the X of the lower X, there's a door, a screen door, a storm door, and you open that door and that goes up the stairs, and then there's two doors that went into original apartments back there. So we're going to remove that whole staircase, the storm door, and then the two doors at the top.
So are you following the parquet? I'm just curious. I'm new to this, but I'm an interior architect, and I'm just curious if the parquet flooring, you're kind of following the original parquet flooring?
Yes.
So you're not like putting new chipboard walls over it?
Nope.
Because that's what my house had, all these new chipboard walls. Okay.
No, they had relocated some of the walls when they made it into an apartment, and as far as I can tell, the wall to the left as you come in is back in the original location.
Okay.
So we're going to, keep the flow with that parquet floor.
Beautiful. That's great. And the floor, does it have hardy backer on it and stuff, or over it, or do you have to refinish the floors? Or?
Oh, the floor, it had, as far as I know, it had oak flooring over it, and they took that up, and the parquet was underneath.
Oh, wow.
So we were lucky.
That's lovely.
A quick question for staff. Being a landmark property, does Salina designate any sort of period of historical significance for these properties like the state or the Fed would do? Or?
It does not. Looking, we've provided a copy of the ordinance that, and from what I can tell, reading the material, this property and the property that's the subject of the next application, because of historically who the property was associated, but more significantly that the architectural integrity of the late Victorian style and the Queen Anne style, not so much the period as the architectural style, that it retains such architectural integrity that was the reason it was designated as a landmark as opposed to just a contributing property. But it does not have, it's not a requirement that there is some period of its existence that is, that it has to be restored to.
That was just my question, because I was debating if the changes made during World War II would have been considered in a period of significance. The state and the federal does similar evaluations of properties, so that's why I was asking that of this one. So.
Well, the World War II modifications are old enough that they could be considered significant in their own right, but this is, from what reading the material, it is more a product of its original time of construction than any subsequent period.
And maybe a note on that from a practical standpoint, that staircase significantly reduces the size of the gorgeous porch. It reduces the walkway around. I mean, you can't have chairs and walk around it. Plus, in talking with the roofers, it complicates the drainage off of it. So I'd have to make some more modifications when I come to re-roof it. So.
Okay. I guess one more question I have for you then on the fence would be, is there any particular reason that you've opted to run the fence the entire length of that Crawford side property? I guess for me, I'm struggling a little bit with how far forward that 6-foot privacy fence comes. I, in some ways, feel that it does encroach a little bit on the historic fabric of that block and the visibility of that home and the next home as you're looking down the street. So I guess I'm curious if there was a particular reason you really felt you needed to pull it all the way out to Santa Fe, to the entire length of that property line.
We're going to put up the site plan, and then we can look at the extent of that. Because
there, you know, I noticed in terms of the.
So are you asking about why is it extended all the way towards Santa Fe?
Correct, because there is a little bit of verbiage in here about new and replacement fencing that talks about front yard fences along side yard property lines, especially if it has an expansive front yard with that visible streetscape, and then just taking into consideration how that fence is now going to impact the visibility of seeing all those properties as you're driving by or driving down Santa Fe.
Okay, well, okay, so as far as the extension towards Santa Fe, that one of the primary reasons to have it extend that far is that it should be a sound barrier. I mean, right now, we have all the traffic that pulls up at the stoplight there along Crawford, and it's surprising. You can actually, I mean, the sound of their stereos will make the windows shake in the house. And so having it extend that far, it will, provide that barrier. And does that answer your question?
It does.
so for the benefit of the commission, and I don't know if we can calculate it, but in the zoning ordinance and based on what this property's zoned, the zoning front yard is the front 25 feet of the property adjacent to Santa Fe as depicted here, but you can see that the house is set back farther than that. So what Commissioner Gillum is referring to is that the prevailing setback on Santa Fe is quite a bit deeper than the minimum zoning setback, which is 25 feet. And so from a strictly zoning ordinance application of the fence code, the front yard is considered to be the front front 25 feet closest to Santa Fe. But this house has a front yard that's quite a bit deeper than 25 feet. So is your question having it fenced at all, or having the open portion drop down and start farther
I
back
guess-
from Santa Fe?
Yeah, I guess that's exactly what I'm kind of getting at, is why the fence couldn't, the open portion of the fence couldn't be pulled back a little more than that 25 feet so that you could retain some of that visibility of the home. You know, I know other applications that have come before this board have talked about fence lines on side streets and not extending them past the front of the home and things like that. And I get where you're coming from in terms of the noise from Santa Fe and Crawford. Just wondering, and I don't mind that the fence is a 6-foot privacy fence, like in the back portion of the lot. I'm just personally kind of struggling with the fact that there's only going to be this very small portion of it that's open to be able to see through, see the home, see the streetscape.
From the Crawford side.
From the Crawford side, as well as just driving down Santa Fe.
Yeah, and it's a good point. So at least coming down Santa Fe, the house is set far enough to the north that that's going to greatly increase the visibility, I would think. It's given that, you know, all of that lawn is there, so that it should still be visible, I would think.
So does the wrought iron fence on the plan view drawing, it shows 25 feet. Will that wrought iron turn the corner onto Crawford and then transition to the privacy fence?
So it would start, as we're reading the plan, it would start near the front property line on Santa Fe, extend 25 feet west, and then transition to the solid privacy fence.
Okay.
And so what Commissioner Gillum is pointing out, Dustin came up with this roughly 52 feet from the Santa Fe property line to the front of the house. So I get what we're saying is that the zoning ordinance for fence regulations defines the front yard as 25 feet, front 25 feet on Santa Fe. Functionally, the way the prevailing setback is on Santa Fe, it's at 50 feet. So what Commissioner Gillum is discussing is whether we should be looking at that based on what the minimum zoning setback is, or whether what the functional front yard actually is on this particular property.
Oh, I just talk. Sorry. Where's my- I'm new to the town from Colorado, and I think the fence is a great idea. I think landscaping can do a lot for sound too, with trees and other things, landscape architecture around the space, because I live near the temple, that's like my mountain here in town, and it's so loud on South and 9th, near where I live, and so loud that I never sit on my front porch, I only sit in the back.
Right.
And so you're on Crawford, which is even busier.
Yeah.
So I totally understand your point of view, and since I'm in your neighborhood, I'm just saying, I concur that I would do anything in my power to make it, and I landscaped my whole front yard and did everything, and it still didn't help. But I don't
No,
have,
it's a
but
good
I don't
point.
have a big yard like you. I mean, I just put whatever
Well, and-
perennials in my front yard.
And when we bought the house, we looked, our first instinct was, well, let's put, a hedge, a row
Right.
of landscaping along there. And I started, going online, doing a bunch of research, and from a sound standpoint, it doesn't really, it's really not effective. I mean, it will cut out, line of sight, but it doesn't impact the sound. So that's why I'm proposing a fence.
Yeah, and, so is it a combination of both of these? Is it going to be so you can still see
Well, the thought was
through?
that the 6-foot fence would be stone-clad pillars with wood in between.
Right,
And then the 25 feet close to Crawford, it's allowed to be 3-foot solid or 4-foot open, 50% open. And
that-
so in keeping with more Victorian, we were going
Right.
to put like a 1-foot wrought iron on top. And maybe one thing to point out here too, if you go back to that drawing, the plot plan, there's a manhole and a traffic light, those two blue circles that are right there on the corner that would prevent having a fence go all the way through. So I was just going to turn the corner and make it a 45 slant to
okay.
make that on the outside, but
Well, this site kind of reminds me of on Prescott.
right.
There's
They
a
have
big.
the wrought iron fence the whole
yeah,
way
they
with
have
the
because
brick
I walk
posts.
around that all the time, and then there's like a red, goes like this, and it's really tall, and there's a skeleton on top.
Right?
Anyway,
So what I would believe Commissioner Gillum was suggesting is, or at least talking about, was moving the lower portion, the shorter fence, further to the east. Is that, did I interpret that correctly to match the setback of the house?
To the west.
Further to
To,
the
or yeah,
west.
to the west, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my personal opinion, that I think it should be moved back to the house line. I just think it would look a lot better. I think it would still provide you with sound barrier on the west side. I do like the wrought iron fence. I think it looks really nice. I think it's gonna look nice when it's done. I just think that these yards on Santa Fe are so expansive with the front yards that it just is part of the fabric of the house and the neighborhood, and I would just like to see something a little bit more open there that matches where the front setback is.
No, I understand what you're saying, and the reason I've wanted to consciously extend it that far is really for the sound barrier. So that if we pull it back another 25 feet, then all the cars that stop at that light going eastbound are still going to be direct line of sight, line of sound to the front porch, to the house, to the yard, and it would really drastically cut down on the sound barrier function.
So where I have my cursor would be
About
roughly
where
the 50-foot setback that we have with the house. And you can see the stop bar in the aerial photo, just to that context and that relationship. So here's the stop bar for the light. And if you move the fence, the shorter fence, to the 50-foot setback, it'd be right around where my cursor is. I'll zoom in a little bit.
So do the same rules apply for landscaping as fences, or is it just
No,
fences?
the rules applies. We don't want somebody planting a 6 or 8 foot dense hedge at an intersection that would obstruct visibility, but there's no setback requirements or height limits per se, as long as you keep the vegetation out of the vision clearance at the intersection. So if, let's say, the wrought iron portion was extended back farther west and you wanted to plant landscaping adjacent to it, that would not be something that would be subject to regulation. It's just that if it was something like junipers or something like that, it would essentially have the same visual obstruction as having a 6 foot privacy fence. And so I think what the point being is that there's not, if you look up and down that block of Santa Fe, absent the property to the south that has that picket fence, not many of the homes have fencing that extends out past the front. And so notwithstanding that yours is a corner lot and that side can be fenced, I think it's just looking at the streetscape up that particular block, and that most of the homes have expansive front yards compared to a standard neighborhood.
One plant that would really help you is, I planted this plant, it's a ornamental grass called pampas grass, and in the mountains, that would take forever to grow, but in 1 year, I've only lived here 2 years, it went from being this high to like, it's almost to as high as my whole house. I have a 2-story house. Yeah, it's crazy. It's called pampas grass. You can get it for $5 at any of the nurseries. It grows like a weed here, unlike the mountains.
I thought a fence was more for privacy to see, and I've got a 6-foot fence, and I can hear anything in my neighbor. So,
Well, and it's going to be more than just the cedar, slats.
okay.
Because you're right, it just a simple, common privacy fence is not going to be a sound barrier. The one that I've shown is going to be some heavier timbers to actually provide some sound protection. So let's see, what was I going to say? I guess primary justification here is really for the sound. If it wasn't for the traffic on Crawford, then it would be a different objective.
Nice looking fence, though. I like what.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I like the architectural of it too. And I'm glad the trees are gone that were up there by the house. But if this was just a 6-foot picket fence,
Right.
like everybody puts up everywhere, I'd be a hard no. But I think if you do the architectural work in here with your rock and your cross bracing and stuff, I think from the street you can still see the second floor of the house.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And more of the architectural importance of the house is in the front with that porch and everything. I would like to see 50 feet of the other fence in there, but
Well, and that's exactly why I wanted to go this way. The cheaper way is just to slap up a standard
Yeah.
fence. But we wanted to put up something that's going to be in keeping with the period style. The heavier stone columns certainly accent that. Heavier wood will give it much more presence, a much better look. And we wanted, this is open to the wind too. We wanted something that's not going to blow over with the next big storm that comes over.
The trash all comes into your yard too.
No, that it's really going to be attractive, and it's going to keep with the historical look of the whole area.
Yeah, beautiful.
Would it help you to see a rendering?
No.
Or
I guess
Okay.
my question is, are you very opposed to pulling the fence, the open portion back that 25 feet, or are you open to that as a recommendation? Because I'm looking at this as a whole, and I'm wondering if we should break it out into the 4 pieces and vote. Because really the only thing that I kind of have an issue with is the fence. Everything else I would almost make a motion to approve everything with the recommendation that you pull the fence back 25 feet, but I'm wondering where you stand on that type of recommendation.
I'd have to think about it. in coming up with the whole concept, I've been pretty well set on that 25 feet, just with the, primarily for the noise control. I'm looking at putting the original style, wood storm windows on the second story, also for noise control, because as you mentioned, you'll be able to see the house coming down Crawford. Well, that also means the noise
Will come up
will
there
go
too.
over the fence. So, Saturday nights, the master bedroom is on the Crawford side, so we hear all the traffic and all the noise. So I'm going to have to do something to try to cut that down. But that's where extending it to the 25 foot. My objective was really to minimize the noise. Sure.
Hello, I'm Cindy Geiger. Maybe there could be some kind of compromise made, like 35 feet? Would you be
I don't
more
know.
open to that?
We'll have to.
And just so you know, the picture that was shown on the left, the wooden fence, it's really not quite to the Victorian aesthetic that I would like to attain. I hope we can offer you, when this actually happens, a fence that is beautiful, and that will be the look, the quality of the sentiment of a Victorian home. That's not quite it, but that's the best we've found so far. But I do hope that is my wish, that we will find something that it just embellishes the whole property. And that picture is just not quite it, but we're not quite there yet with our design choices. So just so you know.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that's why we wanted to come and talk with you about it, because, make sure of the concept is allowed. So before I go to all the work of getting quotes and design and all the details of it. But
Okay. Sounds like that, based on the comments, does anybody else have any questions about other aspects of the project?
So there's two options. As it was really hard for us to write up all of our alternatives, because conceivably we could have had like 12 different alternatives for each of the work items. But there are two options as it relates to the fence. One is to approve a certificate of compatibility for 3 of the 4 work items and address a separate vote on the fence. The other option would be to approve 3 of the 4 work items and postpone consideration of the fence. Let the applicants look at some alternatives or ponder it a little longer and bring it back in front of the commission to vote on the fence project separately. So those would be the 2 options. But obviously you'd have an option to, under option 1, that you could approve a certificate of appropriateness for the garage, the front door, and the rear porch removal, and then have a separate vote on the fence project. Or one option would be to postpone consideration of the fence aspect to allow some additional time to ponder or to look at alternatives or provide additional detail. So you could approve 3 of the items and have a separate vote on the fence project, and that options under the fence project would be to approve it with conditions, or to postpone consideration of that work item in order to consider different alternatives.
Well, I just appreciate that you've put so much thought into the fence. It's not like you just went to Menards and are putting up some, you really put a lot of thought into it. And it is on the busiest street in Fort Collins, sorry, in Salina.
I guess if the board agrees, I think I'd like to break it up into two portions.
That's fine.
One with the garage, the front door, and the staircase removal, and then the second being separate with a decision on the fence.
Mhm.
If we could do that.
Yep. So I have a motion to, you're saying postpone consideration of the fence
Yeah.
at this time?
I think so,
Yeah.
especially after you indicated that maybe you were still looking for design options on that. I think I'd like to see.
Well, I mean, it's
maybe-
not going to look exactly like that wood design, but,
Right.
I mean, if you want to see a final design, I'll have to think about, from a percentage, what I'm achieving, because it is a larger investment to install a fence like that, and if I'm only getting a fraction of the noise, I'll have to consider that, but, yeah, I can finalize the design if that's what you're asking about.
Before you do the fence, though, I'm just suggesting put a bunch of, I'm really into native plants, and put a bunch of, they're not native to Colorado, but they're native to here, those pampas, they're not native to here, actually. That's why they grew so tall. Because a normal native plant wouldn't go gangbusters like that. So you could put those all along there, and, they're quicker than junipers, anything. And I would do that like pronto. I mean,
Well, that's one thing is right now, there's no irrigation. So we're looking at putting a well in and some,
well,
and some
these
lawn
don't need
sprinklers. So
irrigation. These are native plants.
right.
So-
No, but part of that is tied, so it's where I want to at least get confirmation on what I'm doing with the fence, which
Right.
is going to, affect
Or
the layout
sprinkler
of the,
system and everything, yep.
irrigation, because we certainly want to landscape along on the north side of the fence with different things and figure
Right.
out how it's all going
I
to
just-
go.
Yeah. Not on the Santa Fe side, on the Crawford side. Don't put pampas, don't put
No.
those plants
there's-
on the Santa Fe
we will-
style.
We're never going to put anything down the Santa Fe
Yeah,
side.
yeah.
That's the charm of the house, is being able to see the,
Right.
the full
Yeah.
extent of it.
But a lot of people in town do that, like, they put them, if you drive around Highland, like Highland Street, you'll see these native, I keep calling them native, but they're not, ornamental
No, I mean what
grass.
you're talking, and
Like
we
in
had,
between people's houses, like, they don't want to see their neighbor's driveway, so they put a row of those. So anyway, I don't know, I just was blown away how quickly they grew. I
So-
agree with you.
So would that be option 4?
Well, option 4 is postpone consideration of the application as a whole or any individual work item in order to obtain additional information concerning the projects. We're not recommending that per se, we're just saying that that's an option. So if you wanted to refer to them the way they are on the agenda, there seems to be a consensus about work item 1, 3, and 4. So if someone wants to make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness for work items 1, 3, and 4, that could be dealt with, and then the commission could decide how they want to address the fence.
I make a motion, we approve 1, 3, and 4 on CA 24-2.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Okay, so we have a certificate of appropriateness approved for the garage, for the front door entry and removal of the rear porch. And so now that leaves us with work item 2. And as I noted before, the options related to item 2 would be to approve the fence project as submitted, approve it with conditions or revisions, or to make a motion to postpone consideration of the fence project to a future meeting to allow additional information to be obtained.
I move we
Fine.
postpone the approval of the privacy fence so that the owner can obtain more information, as well as maybe think a little bit in terms of our recommendation for moving the open portion back to meet the facade of the house.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Geiger.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yes. And then item 3.2.
Item 3.2 is a certificate of compatibility application filed by Sean Hennessy, the owner of 746 South Santa Fe Avenue, and the application is for approval of certificate of appropriateness to allow the construction of a new detached garage on that property. And again, the address is the west side of South Santa Fe, address to 746 South Santa Fe, and this is a contributing property within the South Santa Fe Historic District, and also designated as a landmark in the historic district that was created. Mr. Michelson will be giving the report on that application.
Thank you, Dean. So this property is lots 24 and 26 in Block 2 of the Bonds Edition, and is addressed at 746 South Santa Fe. And as Dean said, it's a landmark property in the South Santa Fe Avenue Historic District, due to its architectural and historical significance. Our records show that it was constructed in 1887, and it's an example of a Victorian stick style type architecture with Gothic revival features. It's a 2-story cube-shaped home with cross-gabled roof. And the Gothic revival features of the home are front-gabled, steeply sloped roof with steep cross gables which extend from each lateral side. The front and side gables have decorative stickwork and decorative fan-shaped trusses. And the cross gables extend over a shallow wing on the north and a 2-story bay window on the south sides. And one Gothic window occurs on the north face, and purlins and rafters are enclosed on the cornice. The 1-story full-width front porch has a shed roof over spindle and sawn wood frieze and supports and balusters. The flattened arch brackets connect the frieze to 4 regular spindlework columns, and a sawn wooden grill closes the wood porch deck right there at the bottom. The structure is wood framed with clapboard siding on a cut limestone foundation, and the stick style details are decorative horizontal and vertical stickwork, Eastlake fan embellished trusses at the verge, and an exterior wainscot which skirts the first floor level above the foundation. A covered lateral back porch follows the south facade. And this also has some historical significance, as it was built by J.D. Wellington in 1887, and then was later owned and lived in by Thomas L. Bond and his wife. And they moved into the house, and it was purchased by them and moved into in 1902. And Bond was the registrar of the Salina Land Office in 1871 and held that position for 9 years. And the Bond family lived there for about 66 years. And it's one of the few remaining late Victorian homes left in Salina, as was the previous case. The current owners, Sean and Christine Hennessy, purchased this property in January of 2022, and recently Mr. Hennessy submitted a building permit application proposing to construct a new detached 3-car garage at the rear of the property. And staff spoke with him after the application and let him know that he would need Heritage Commission review to obtain a certificate of appropriateness to construct the garage, due to it being located in the South Santa Fe Historic District. So the applicant's requesting a Heritage Commission approval of the plans for the construction of a new detached 3-car garage. And that would be the second detached accessory structure on the property, with the other one being an 18 by 12 foot structure that was originally constructed as a garage, but it currently is used as a shed, and the driveway connection to that structure has been removed, so it can't actually be used as a garage. And it's fairly small for modern cars, so they've repurposed it and landscaped around that. So this replacement, or this new proposed garage, would be the only detached garage on the property at the end of the project. The proposed garage would be a 36-foot by 21-foot building, which is 756 square feet, and would be located west of the house in the rear yard, and would face the alley between South Santa Fe and Highland Avenue. And the applicant has stated that the proposed garage would have 3 garage doors, each 9 feet in width and 8 feet in height, and would be accessed from the alley. The siding would consist of engineered wood that would be painted to match the exterior color of the residence, and it would be a similar a matching siding material and color. The roofing would consist of architectural shingles that would closely match the existing shingles on the home and the existing detached shed. And the garage would not be visible from the front, from the South Santa Fe side of the residence. It would just mainly be visible from the alley. You would have to be standing more or less at the property lines to be able to see back to the rear of the house to be able to see the garage. As proposed, the garage would have a 10-foot setback from the rear property line, 27-foot setback from the north property line, and a 37-foot setback from the south property line. And it would be separated from the dwelling by approximately 48 feet. It wouldn't require any removal of trees on the lot, and it would allow several feet of clearance to the garage, or from the garage to the trees. The applicant also stated that that the other detached structure was originally built as a garage, and that structure is below the 360 square foot limit on storage sheds that's allowed for the secondary storage structures. It's only been used as a storage shed due to the fences that the property owners have installed there on the sides of the house, and they've removed the driveway connection to that, so it just is used for storage, and then has a landscaping in front with a fence. And as I said earlier, this property is identified as a landmark property within the historic district, and which means that demolition and building permits for the garage can't be issued unless an application for a certificate of appropriateness has been approved. And since this is a landmark property, it is another one that has to be considered with the highest level of scrutiny by the board. The property is like as I said, is a landmark in the historic district because of its Gothic Revival style and the integrity of the architecture currently. The conservation ordinance sets out design criteria for the construction of new accessory buildings that are accessory to landmark properties within the historic districts. And the dwelling on this lot is considered to be the principal use. The principal use, and detached garages and sheds are considered to be accessory structures. An application to construct a new accessory structure should be evaluated on the following criteria. Accessory structures within the boundaries of a designated historic district should be appropriate to and compatible with the architectural features of the primary structure on the lot. And additionally, the zoning ordinance requires that detached garages be compatible in design, materials, and appearance with the dwelling they serve. And this applies to residential districts in general, not just historic districts. The dwelling on the property was included in the nomination to form the historic district by its property owners in 1991. The district includes 55 properties located on a portion of the 500 block and all of the 600 and 700 blocks of South Santa Fe, and that ordinance was approved in December of 1991. The designation as a historic district recognizes this area for its architectural integrity and craftsmanship and cultural significance to the city that is worthy of preservation. And this means that a proposed project would be reviewed with a greater degree of scrutiny than if the property was designated as non-contributing or a contributing property. The city also has the compatibility checklist that we use to compare the proposed residential accessory structures to the existing dwelling on the lot. And so staff has reviewed this proposed garage in comparison with the existing dwelling. So going through those, it does have 5 criteria, and this proposed garage matches 4 of the 5 criteria, with the only one not matching being the orientation of the roof. So one of the criteria is criteria number 3 on this checklist is the roof style, its orientation, and the roof pitch matches that used on the principal residential dwelling. And the existing dwelling has a primary roof ridge that's oriented east-west, but it also has the cross gables oriented north-south. The proposed garage would have gable-style roof oriented north-south, with the gable ends being the north and the south ends. The roof pitch of the proposed garage doesn't quite match the existing dwelling, which has the steeply sloped roof, whereas this one would have approximately a 412 pitch, and the existing dwelling has more of a period correct, like 1212 or something around approximately that slope. So that would be the only criteria that it doesn't match, with the others being the building material, the roofing material, and sidewall height being lower than the dwelling, and the paint and finish color matching. And the applicant has provided the proposed paint and siding, and we should have an exhibit with those. It's a matching color, and it's a closely matching siding material as well. So based on the factors in the compatibility checklist, the proposed garage does match 4 of the 5 criteria, and staff does believe that it is considered compatible with the dwelling. So some findings that staff would suggest is that the property owner has shown that the existing detached garage on the property, or the existing previous garage, the one that's used as a storage shed now, is no longer physically able to be used for that purpose due to its size and due to the driveway being disconnected and landscaping and the fence around it. The proposed new detached garage is compatible to the design, materials, and appearance with the architectural features of the existing house on the lot and the surrounding historic neighborhood. And the proposed placement of the garage conforms to all the setback requirements and size limitations of the zoning ordinance. So the board would have 4 options here, with option 1 being to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed garage based on staff's findings that the project would conform to the Heritage Conservation District ordinance and the city's compatibility checklist for detached garages. Option 2 would be to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed garage based on staff findings that the project would conform to the district ordinance and the compatibility checklist, subject to any conditions approved by a majority of the board. Option 3 would be to postpone consideration of the application in order to obtain additional information concerning the proposal. And option 4 would be to deny the application as presented upon making findings that the proposed garage does not meet the criteria in the Heritage Conservation District ordinance. And if the commission agrees that the applicant has provided sufficient information concerning the proposed project and the board concurs with staff's findings, staff would recommend option 1. And staff is available for any questions, and we do have the applicant here as well to answer any specific, or answer to any specific details.
Okay, I would invite Mr. Hennessy up to the podium. If you had any other comments or would like to elaborate on anything.
No, I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity for the consideration. We've been here for 3 years. We felt very fortunate to be able to find this house in the condition it was in. Some of the prior owners had spent quite a bit of time and money repairing some of the key systems. So luckily I didn't have to do that myself, which is what every other house I seem to have bought I've had to do. So the HVAC, the electrical and all that had already been done. You know, the interior, which is not what you're addressed here today, is in its original condition, which is amazing for a home of this age and hasn't been painted over or anything. So we felt very fortunate. I originally was looking to get a two-car garage, a relatively large two-car garage, but I'm also I became the guardian for my disabled sister who is wheelchair bound. And so that's why I wanted to get as deep. Originally, I was planning to get a 36 by 24. And that is for the van and to be able to load and unload her in bad weather. Won't fix the going from the house to the garage, but at least the loading and unloading would be better. However, that was over the 770 square feet, so we lowered it to 36 by 21. I think, you know, the van will still fit. It'll cut down a little bit on my workspace, but that's okay. And so that has been the major modification. We suffered like many people in the city did during the windstorm. I have only recently finished cutting up all the dead limbs. There was massive destruction of the trees. Thankfully, this fits actually very nicely between four very large trees in the backyard, so we won't have to take any trees out. There is a stump right against the fence line, which will have to be removed, so I get to pay an outrageous amount to have that done, or I can put my life in danger and do it myself. And so that's nice that a lot of those older trees will still be able to remain there.
So I didn't see on the pictures or the drawings of the garage on the proposed floor plan. It shows on end wall A, which would be the side that is facing the house. Was there going to be any windows on that side?
I was originally just planning to put a window on both sides of it, but then the question is, do I put the door on the side facing the house or the door on the side to where you have it go out? I would probably, I mean, I'm open to having more windows, although then it becomes how much space do I end up losing, because I've already cut back the size to being able to have workbenches and workshop. So I want to try to maximize that, since that 3 feet actually cuts out quite a bit of space. So I want to keep the number of windows to a minimum so I don't eliminate more workspace. But that would be the key criteria.
Okay.
What would the path of travel be from the garage to the house? Would you use the overhead doors, or are you proposing any doors that would go from the garage to the house?
Yeah, the door would be, my preference would be to put the door on the side, although right there, it's not shown there, it actually just shows the window right now. When we purchased the house, We have pallets of bricks in the back, and so we plan to repurpose those for a walkway to go to the house because it is quite a distance from the house. I want to calculate and make sure I have enough bricks before I actually put the door in. So the door will be on either the side there with a window or the what I'll call the north end of this drawing. A lot of that is going to be dependent upon how much of those bricks I have. That will be quite a bit of work to get them in place properly, but it's nice to be able to reuse some of those bricks. Some of the pictures you saw from before around the flower beds, they used to have just bricks, and my wife had a strong preference for the fieldstone, which during the renovations, it is still a limestone foundation. However, the rear kitchen was sinking, so they took that limestone out, put it in the back with the bricks, and it was sitting there. So we are using that around the flower beds just to try and reuse as much as possible. So I haven't done the calculations out on the bricks, so I don't know which of the two walls the door will go on based upon the amount of bricks I have.
What is the ordinance for Salina? and I'm not talking about your house in particular, but just all of Salina, for doing what, like in Durango, an architect friend of mine, because they didn't have enough housing for students, in the alley of all the alleys in Durango, Colorado, she would do a lot of the old garages and pop them and make them into housing, you know, and they're really well designed, or Airbnbs. And that's happening all over Colorado. And I know that so many Californians moved to Colorado, and now a lot of the Coloradans are moving to the Midwest. And I'm just curious, in the alleys, can you make, like I have a garage in my backyard, can I make that into an Airbnb?
We do not have an ordinance presently that allows for accessory dwelling units.
ADUs, yeah.
ADUs at this time. But there are some locations in Salina where people have put bedrooms over their garage or spaces
exactly.
over their garage, but not for renting out to other parties, but just for the use of the occupants of that
Exactly.
residence.
Like for instance, if his sister couldn't move all the time, could she stay on that concrete slab in a tiny home on there?
Not presently, no.
Okay, that was just my question. I don't know the rules of Salina, so thank you.
Had you looked at changing the roof pitch at all to match the house? Or?
To duplicate that roof pitch would be frankly a nightmare because it's so varied on that. It'd be much steeper. The costs, frankly, are already pretty high. I mean, garages in Salina, I'm shocked by, to put it mildly. It's taking me quite a while to even find a contractor that would do one. And when I finally got quotes, I proceeded to choke at the price. So frankly, I mean, I'm already spending an enormous amount just to get this garage, but that's because I'm going through garage withdrawal since this is the only house we've had that hasn't had that. So I haven't really considered that. I'm sure it would significantly increase the cost. Again, I'd love to have more additional space since that wouldn't count towards the overall square footage, although I do think that if I go up very much more, I may run into a problem with the lower branches on the trees also, because I've got about 3-foot clearance on both sides, and that'll be good the roots won't cause too many problems, but the higher I go up, the more the branches will come down. Now, the wind did trim a lot of those branches for me without request, but you go much higher and you would start running into that situation.
And then do you plan on leaving the existing driveway in the front? off Santa Fe?
So, for additional parking spots, yes. When we first moved in, there was just gravel and dirt there. And it was very unattractive with the rest of the front of the house. So we did get that concrete put in there for parking. With the van, it's large enough for 4 cars, but with the van, it's a tight fit. So it would be used, for example, when I'm taking my sister out and going in and out quickly, we would just use the front to park in and out. But then obviously the garage would be used during inclement weather or overnight or things of that nature.
Okay.
When did you put that concrete in?
Year and a
There you
half
go.
ago or something like that. We were one of the few drives on Santa Fe, I know this from walking the dogs, that still had a dirt driveway, which, like I said, it just did not look nice, I didn't think. We're still working on the dead grass in the front. I don't know if somebody changed their oil and threw it in the yard or what, but the grass just does not want to grow in that area directly in front of where the car is parked. We've tried quite a bit, but it's also directly in the shade of the tree, which doesn't help, but even the weeds don't want to grow there, so I don't know what's happened in the past, so.
Well, a little perspective, Santa Fe, New Mexico, I lived there for 25 years, and it's a sign of wealth if you live off a gravel road. Everyone wants a dirt road, so it's the opposite of here.
Well, in Santa Fe also, everyone has adobe, so.
Well, it's wood construction with plaster.
Did you ever think of taking the driveway all the way back to the back of the house on the north
Sorry,
side?
what was that?
Did you ever think of taking the driveway to the north, all the way to the back on the north side?
Well,
And building your
we did
garage
not
up
put
close?
the black fences in there. The black fences were put in by the previous owners, and they're fairly nice ornate fences, so I didn't really want to take them out. But there is a sidewalk that goes to, I call it the shed now, because it was built as a garage, but you can't use it. The only way to use that as a garage, you would have to come in through the back gate fence, drive over some flowers, over a sidewalk, and then come to the front and do a 4 or 5 point turnaround in order to pull into this claustrophobic garage. So it's really, and frankly, I'm going to have to do some more work to it to strengthen it. It does have new shingles which match the house, which we're going to try to match them as closely as possible. But some of the work that was done on that was not impressive to me, so I'm going to be looking to do some more of that. But I certainly didn't want to remove the fences. They were already there, and plus we have 3 dogs, if you look in some of the pictures, and so that fence is important to keep them in. So since they rule the house more than the humans. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. I would.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. I guess I would make a motion to approve the application as presented based on staff's findings, which would be option 1 in our packet.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Motion carries for option 1 of application CA 24-3. And I believe that's all that was on the agenda today.
We don't have any administrative or preliminary discussion items for you this evening. Under other business, there's not a regularly scheduled meeting for December, but we would coordinate with the board, with the Geigers, and with the availability of this room to try to schedule a special meeting to come back and look at the fence project once we have additional information and we can pin down potential meeting dates. This commission usually meets on Wednesdays, but we had no planning commission agenda items this afternoon, and so we already had this room reserved for planning commission, which did not meet, so it made it available for this meeting, and so we'll look for opportunities, but that will be dependent on what we get from in terms of timing of the applicants. So I don't think we have any other business unless you have questions about any previous cases or items. I did want to report as another matter that the ordinance and our agreement with the state being a certified local government gives us the discretion to approve a certificate of appropriateness administratively if it meets some criteria, and staff did approve a certificate of appropriateness for 2 signs that are being placed at the Lee lofts. And so we did not bring those to the commission because on the agreement we have with the State Historic Preservation Office, those are items that staff can approve administratively. So we just wanted to report on that.
I'd like to see what is it architectural signage?
No, it's what I would describe as plaques, signs that would have the look of a historical plaque, but they are simply signs that identify the Lee lofts. The 2 main buildings there is they have the Lee Hardware Building and the Lee Mercantile Building, and the 2 signs simply identify the 2 buildings in a plaque type.
It's not like a
style.
big sign.
No, they're very small signs, and they're simply identifying the building. And so there's 3 buildings there. The north building is addressed as 254. The center building is 250, and there's a south building that's 248. And it's not readily apparent on the outside as to which building is which. And so these signs just are essentially plaques that identify the buildings.
Okay.
Before we adjourn, I do want to enter into the record that we did not have anyone from the public on Zoom today. And aside from our 2 applicants, we didn't have anybody from the public attending the meeting either.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right. Do I have a second? Second. A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.